Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt. Senator Tom Cotton is my guest. Good morning, Senator. Always great to have you.
Good morning, Hugh. Good to be on with you.
Now, I had Governor DeSantis on earlier. I think you're in Switzerland with me, right? You haven't endorsed anyone in the Republican presidential race?
No, Hugh, I haven't endorsed anyone. I'm at the point of my life where I know most of these people pretty well, and I've worked with them all productively, and I wish them all well. They're great Republicans, and every single one of them would be much better than Joe Biden.
Well, you know, I had a column promoting you and a half dozen others for vice president, but then you went through Ohio and you didn't stop at the hot dog shop, which demonstrates to me a huge blind spot in your political chops, Senator.
Well, remember, Hugh, as I've told you, on a 3,400-mile, 12-day road trip, I was doing what every dad is supposed to do with his family. I was telling them, we have to make time. We have to make time. No time to stop.
All right, now, Senator, I do want to talk to you about what Ron DeSantis told me, which is he does not discount the possibility that Xi and the CCP would order a first strike on American assets. How do you assess that risk?
He's right. It is a genuine risk. If Xi Jinping thinks that he can go for the jugular in Taiwan and achieve his and the party's long-stated desire of invading and annexing Taiwan to communist China, he knows the number one, really the only impediment to that ambition is the American military. So I would not be surprised at all if Xi Jinping launches a military first strike against our assets in places like Guam or Okinawa, or takes actions that are harder to attribute in cyberspace or in outer space as a way to inhibit our ability to stop his invasion or to deter us. That may seem like it's unlikely or improbable or scaremongering, but Hugh, that's exactly what people probably thought about Japan launching a surprise attack on Pearl Harbor, or if you consider Germany's war plans leading up to World War I, when everyone knew that Germany had to launch an unprovoked attack to the West if it were to defend itself to the East. So you absolutely cannot discount the possibility that China might launch a first strike of some sort against the United States as part of its plan to invade and annex Taiwan.
I told the governor, and I'll tell you, I was reading William Manchester's biography of Douglas MacArthur last night, and our preparations for World War II were non-existent. We were completely surprised by Pearl Harbor, and 9 hours later, we got completely surprised at Clark Air Force Base in the Philippines, and there was a little bit of racist undercurrent, which Manchester covers. We didn't think the Japanese capable of such a strike. Do you think our military is alert to the risks and fully defensed against this?
Hugh, I think our military is alert, especially our military out in Hawaii at the Pacific Command. The commanders there and their subordinate commanders have been very focused on the China threat for years. But do they have the tools they need? No, they don't, Hugh. We're not in as woeful a state as we were in the lead up to World War II. And as I write in Only the Strong, I think we had the 17th or 18th largest military in the world on the eve of World War II, smaller than Portugal's. But there's no question that China has launched a crash military buildup that is beginning to rival our military and specifically designed to try to deny us the ability to come to the aid of Taiwan or our allies in countries like Japan and South Korea, to include a crash nuclear buildup. If we don't change course soon, Hugh, and begin to invest the resources in our military to include our nuclear forces, we may face the risk of a nuclear overmatch, maybe against China and certainly against China and Russia combined, when they can use those forces to do what Churchill said Russia wanted after World War II, to enjoy the fruits of victory without the cost of war.
Now, Senator, I talked about artificial intelligence arm race with Governor DeSantis, and I want the audience to know what I mean by that. Is that there is rapidly advanced. It's not it's the theme of Mission Impossible, the movie, and I'm not talking about that. I'm not worried about a master artificial intelligence taking over the world. I am concerned about AI capabilities being in the hands of the communists and not ours. And I asked the governor, what do you do when you're relying on Google and Microsoft, and the former has, censored America, as has Facebook, and Microsoft works with the CCP? Where do we get an AI advantage? And as a member of Judiciary, Intel, and Armed Services, you're one of the few people that actually get the whole spectrum of this issue.
Well, I mean, Hugh, it's a real challenge because the very best minds in the country working on this issue are in some of these large tech companies or in the broader tech environment, and oftentimes that environment has very left-wing views. You have very talented engineers and computer scientists who think that working with the United States government on any kind of military intelligence project is immoral or unethical. There are pockets, though, that are dedicated to trying to help our troops in the field have the tools they need to be able to deter aggression by countries like China and Russia, and if necessary, to defeat them. It's just it is a challenge. Now, fortunately, I believe we're still ahead of China in the race for AI, and we'll stay ahead of them if we don't make bad decisions, especially in Washington. I know there's lots of calls for AI regulation in Congress these days. Congress is always like 5-year-olds playing soccer. They want to rush to whatever is hot in the news. But I think the only thing that would worry the American people more than completely unregulated artificial intelligence is Congress trying to insert itself at these early stages and trying to regulate it.
Yeah, I really don't know what to do. I know that Lena Khan, now I own Amazon stock, so I have to declare that. Lena Khan is at war with big tech, and she's at war with Amazon at the FTC. It's got, as far as I can tell, absolutely no awareness of the national security implications of what she's doing.
Well, I'm also not sure she has awareness of anything she's doing since she just lost yet another case at court. I mean, she keeps filing these cases. I'm not sure she's won one yet. And now she's trying to jump in to regulate AI with really no legal authority under the Federal Trade Commission Act to do so.
Exactly.
So I wouldn't be surprised to see a judge give her yet another rebuke.
So do you get her before judiciary, or is that banking committee and you don't get to talk to her?
She appears occasionally. I opposed her nomination. Hugh, I guess when I opposed her nomination, I opposed it because of her extreme ideological views. I didn't even realize at the time that she was a early 30-something law professor with no practical experience in the world. If I'd done that, I would have voted strenuously no, not just no. So I'm not sure why so many of my colleagues supported her. I mean, I understand opposition to big tech companies, and there's a way to express that opposition. But jumping in with a bunch of left-wing regulators like Lena Khan and Liz Warren, to me, is not the productive choice.
I know left-wing law professors. I work with left-wing law professors. What left-wing law professors are my friends? I don't want them regulating anything. They have no idea what they're doing. So that's
most of them couldn't run a lemonade stand to you, much less a combat operation or a major company or a government agency.
Oh, you should be at a faculty meeting sometime. So let me turn over to the hearing yesterday, the IRS hearing in the House. I played the entire opening statement of Joseph Ziegler. I doubt Dick Durbin will bring him before Senate Judiciary, but it's stunning what happened with Hunter Biden. Are you following this, Senator?
Yeah, I wasn't able to watch the hearing live, but I did see some of the excerpts, and I've read the coverage of it, and I've spoken with some of my colleagues like Jason Smith and Jim Jordan who are heading up this investigation, and it is shocking. I mean, these are highly credible allegations from whistleblowers with no partisan axe to grind. I believe Mr. Ziegler self-identified himself as a gay Democrat, but who are professionals at their work and believe that someone like Hunter Biden shouldn't be getting off scot-free with a slap on the wrist and a sweetheart deal, that he should face consequences for his action, and that investigation should be allowed to play out wherever it may lead, which they seem to provide pretty strong evidence that it leads directly to Joe Biden, the big guy.
Yeah, one of his things is that in 1 year alone, Hunter Biden ended up avoiding $106,000 in taxes. Now, I told people that's like robbing a bank. You and I pay our taxes. No one should pay what they don't owe. No one should just turn money over to the IRS. But if you owe $106,000 and you don't pay it, it's like robbing a bank. You're taking the money. Do you think anyone will do anything in the Senate about this?
In the Senate? No, you're very right, Hugh, that Dick Durbin is not going to be having these whistleblowers come forward. I remember a time not too long ago when whistleblowers were sacrosanct, and you had to take everything they said at the total face value. You couldn't question their motives at all. But I guess that only applies when Donald Trump is president, not when Joe Biden is president, because it's been total crickets out of Dick Durbin and the Senate Democrats.
Okay, I want to finish with Jack Smith. I also asked Governor DeSantis about this. Now he's running against Donald Trump. but he is very suspicious of Jack Smith and his novel legal theories on NARA. And now it looks like we haven't seen the indictment, so we're not certain. It looks like he's going to indict the president for fundraising activities. You know, Senator, I think you're pretty straightforward with your fundraising. I know that, in fact. But I have seen almost every fundraising pitch I get is somewhat misleading if it comes from a PAC. Do you think Jack Smith is out there on uncharted waters again, like with Bob McDonnell?
Well, yeah, I do, Hugh. I think Jack Smith is a zealot. I think he's an anti-politician, maybe an anti-Republican zealot for one, as evidenced by the Bob McDonnell case. You know, Bob McDonnell was a successful governor of Virginia, a potential national candidate. He was faced with these far-fetched schemes of bribery and influence peddling that the Supreme Court later reversed 9-0 against Jack Smith. And the reason, Hugh, the Supreme Court reversed that 9-0 is because there aren't 11 justices to vote against Jack Smith's position.
Huh.
Now you see the same thing reportedly with Donald Trump. Again, if there is an indictment, we'll see what it says. But if he's going to indict Donald Trump for sending out misleading fundraising emails, Hugh, I can tell you basically every politician in America is going to get indicted. How about Nancy Pelosi and all the promises of quadruple matching every donation you give in the next 37 minutes?
Yes.
And also, too, I mean, Hugh, think about, like, so is it the position of the Democratic Party and Jack Smith that states like Pennsylvania and Michigan with Democratic governors can just upend their election laws at the last minute before an election, sometimes perhaps in violation of their own state laws or state constitutions, and then if Republicans point that out, they're going to face criminal liability? I mean, again, we'll see what the indictment, if any, says, but I have no doubt that Jack Smith is an anti-Trump and even anti-Republican zealot.
30 seconds, Senator. Ron DeSantis also said it's not possible for Donald Trump to get a fair trial in D.C. 95% Democratic registration. Do you agree with him?
I think it's very hard, not just for Donald Trump, but perhaps for any Republican politician or Republican figure in Washington, D.C. I think we ought to consider like having a venue law that specifically prohibits these kind of cases from being brought in the District of Columbia.
That's exactly what Governor DeSantis said. Thank you so much, Senator Cotton. Appreciate your appearance.